Welcome back, and in this chapter we shall learn what is a check, what means an idea to check the king. So let me take you through what I have written in the book. So the game of chess signifies a war, and as in any war, the outcome depends on its king. If the king is captured or killed or is forced to surrender, the battle is won, and this is what happens in chess too. So it is necessary for you to know what to do when king is attacked and how to get the king out of check. And the first thing to know is to get introduced to the two most important words in a game of chess, that is check and checkmate. In chess parlance, the attack on the king by one or more of the opponent's piece is called check. And when the king cannot avoid capture on being attacked, it is said to be checkmate. This immediately ends the game in favor of player who has delivered the lethal check. Before we proceed to see the examples of king in check, let us first try to see the evolution of this move. In the version of Chaturanga said to have developed in India way back in 5th century, the rules of the game provided for capture of the king if the player whose king is in check does not remove the check. That means, like say, if you have given a check to your opponent and opponent does not remove the check, he was not able to see through the check, then you had a right to capture the king. The game ended straight away there and itself. Thus it became common to, like when the game spread to Persia, present day Iran, they modified this rule of capturing the king by giving a warning to the player who has not moved out of check. Thus it became common to announce check and checkmate, which remained in force as early as the start of 20th century. So the Iranians, the Persians modified the rule. They said why to capture the king, why to spoil the game. So means like whenever a check was given, it became common to give a warning to the opposing player whose king was in check by saying that you are in check, and thus came the word check. The word check and checkmate is also the contributions of Persians. The king in Persia was commonly known as Shah, and when the king was attacked, it was mandatory to give warning by announcing Shah. Similarly, when the king cannot avoid capture, it was common to declare Shahmat, like because the game was played on a mat. When the game spread to Europe around 9th century, it is possible that they found it difficult to pronounce the word Shah and Mat, and thus we got the word check and checkmate. So let us now learn the finer points of this move. The first one, the king is said to be in check if it is attacked by one or more of the opponent pieces. So very simple. Whenever any of your opponent pieces attacks your king, it is said to be check, or you attack your opponent's king with any of your chessmen in queen, rook, bishop, knight or pawn, then it is check. All the 5 chessmen excepting the king are endowed with powers to deliver check. Thus the check giving pieces are queen, rook, bishop, knight and pawn. Third rule, the king cannot itself directly check the opposing king, since the rule provides to maintain a distance of minimum 1 square between them. That means both the kings, since they cannot approach each other directly, they have to maintain a minimum distance of 1 square. They cannot give check to each other. Fourth rule, a player whose king is in check is required to get out of the same immediately. That means he cannot make any other move. His king cannot remain in check. He has to remove check with the principles which I will explain it later in the next part. Finally, the fifth rule, it is illegal for a player to make a move which places or leaves his king in check. This we had seen, we had learned that we can never bring a king to a square which is controlled by an opponent's chessman. So that is illegal. Let us now have a look at different examples of the king in check. So, since there are 5 check giving pieces, I will illustrate check with each of them. So, here in this position, what do we see? The white queen on g7 is giving check to the black king on b7. Next example, we see this rook on a7 giving check to the king on g7. We know that rook moves straight, either standing or sleeping, that is vertically and horizontally. Here the king, the black king on g7 is in path of the rook on a7 and hence it is a check. Now a look at the bishop's check. We know that bishop moves diagonally. Here we see that the white's bishop is on b2 on a dark color and the black king on g7 is in its way, it is being attacked. So we say it's a check by the bishop. And then on to the check by a knight. Knight is a jumping piece, moves 2.5 square. So we see this white knight on d3 attacking the king on e5. It is at a distance of 2.5 square. 1, 2.5 L-shaped I have marked here. So this is a check to the king. And finally, a check with the pawn. Pawn we know captures 1 square diagonally to the left or right. So you see this black king on e5 and white pawn on e4, the white pawn on f4, apologies. The pawn on f4 is attacking the king on e5. We say it's a check to the king. Thus, before closing, I will recap all these rules once again. It means that checking, the most important part, a king is said to be in check when it is attacked by one or more of the opponent chessmen. There are 5 check giving pieces and they are in queen, rook, bishop, knight and pawn. Whenever a king is in check, he cannot do any other move. He is required to get the king out of it immediately. And if the king cannot get out of check by the application of the principles which I am going to explain next, then it is said to be check and mate. So I hope you have been able to understand this very important move. And one thing, like as I said, it was like very common to announce check previously, but now it is not required to do so. FIDE does not mention that it is compulsory to say check. Of course, it will be disturbing to the opponent, and also it's a sort of, like you are giving a warning to your opponent. If you give a check and if opponent does not see it and makes a move which leaves his king in check, then it is said to be an illegal move. And we also know the competition rule that, like, for a first illegal move, a player is given a warning, and on second illegal move he is declared lost. So do not give a warning by saying check. It is for the opponent to find out whether his king is in check or not. So I hope you have understood the concept of checking the king. My advice now is to solve 40 problems given in level 1 book, and this will help you in cementing your understanding. You will be like in a position to find out as to how check can be delivered. With this, I take your leave for now and will be back with the rules regarding getting the king out of check, the principles, the 3 principles to get the king out of check. Till then, bye.